out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of Major League A-Holes in the Hole and Socks Top Thing. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. You are in the hole with Major League A-Holes on a thirsty Thursday. 2 weeks into the season. We did not record last week, so we have a shit ton to talk about. Basically, about 12 games apiece for all 5 clubs we follow. We'll chronicle the first 3 or 4 series for every team. We've also got the return of Badass of the Week. We've got a no-no of the week to talk about already, which is ridiculous.
Exactly.
A very unlikely no-no of the week.
Yeah.
We have a very large aesthetics segment to talk about with several things going on with more uniform debacles across the majors. We've got a Nike City Connect reveal in Philly. And you've got something you want to talk about with the White Sox and the possibility or lack thereof of a ad patch, which I know nothing about, so I can't wait till we get to that. And then we've got to close it all out, of course, with another asshole of the week. Once again, the Dodgers rear their ugly head. This time they're fucking with their fans in a pretty cheap and despicable way. So I don't know. I guess we've got a lot to talk about tonight, so I think we might as well go ahead and jump into the news. My Detroit Tigers lead the A-hole standing, so we're going to lead off with them tonight. 7-4 record. They've just finished a split with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Kind of a disappointing split, but it was kind of lucky they even split it at all. A miracle comeback in the 9th inning of, I believe it was Tuesday's game. They got rained out tonight, so there's nothing to report on their current series. But Tigers are a conundrum. Fantastic bullpen, interesting starting pitching. Kind of most of the rotation has been good, and then all of a sudden most of the rotation is bad, and there's very little offense, and that was on display when we get finally to the White Sox series, but that opened the season. But a frustrating experience for Tigers fans, except we're 7-4. I talked a lot last episode about how it was imperative they got off to a hot start to stop them from burying themselves like they've done the last 3 seasons with I think they were 25-50 over the last 3 years in March and April games, just crushing their any chance to compete in the division within the first month. 7-4, you can't complain. It's a little nerve-wracking though, considering how bad the offense has been. Totally bailed out by the bullpen. The bullpen is amongst the best in the majors. If the offense can start clicking a little bit, then we're in business. They've got a series coming up with the Twins. Actually, they're going to play the Twins twice, I think, in the next 2 weeks, which is huge. The Twins are limping in.
Terrible. Terrible.
Yeah. The Guardians are a lot better than I thought in the division, but that could be short-lived as they've lost Shane Bieber, their ace, for the season with Tommy John surgery. So, yeah, I mean, the real frustration started after the first week as the Tigers were, 5-0 at one point, the last team in the majors to lose a game. But the Oakland A's, my fucking A's, came into town, and once again, they pummel the Tigers in Comerica Park. They are 21-4 at Comerica Park over the last 5 seasons, and it's just an inexplicable. I mean, the A's had 1 win going into that series against the Tigers. Can't explain how that keeps happening. It's a thing though. Somehow A's bats feel very comfortable in Comerica Park, no matter what's going on. So before that, the Tigers almost swept the New York Mets in New York. They were 1 out, basically 1 inning away from sweeping the doubleheader that would have swept the series against the Mets. Alex Faedo finally gave up a run. You can't be too upset at that point. But the Mets were struggling. The Mets still are struggling. Yes. The Mets will always be struggling. So the Tigers' start has come against some pretty mediocre opponents. It's another way they got to 7-4. But speaking of mediocre opponents, that would include your Chicago White Sox. To open the season, the Tigers actually swept the series in Chicago.
As I said,
a series of 1-run wins.
That's right.
It was a very competitive series. It was fun. More fun for me, obviously, but I hope you had some fun watching that before all your players started getting hurt. Biggest thing I want to point out on opening day is the return of Jason Benetti to Chicago. The first Major League regular season game he broadcast for his new Detroit Tigers happens to be for his in the ballpark of his old club, Chicago White Sox, it was really confusing for me, at least listening to it, because I'm watching a game in Sox Park, hearing Benetti's voice, and I keep thinking he's like rooting for the White Sox somehow with his commentary. I'm getting pissed off. I'm like, wait a minute, he's our guy.
I
Maybe
have
that
a
just reveals
question.
my own. What's that?
Did he goof up at all? Did he get confused at all? Like and in particular, I have a question. I was sitting there and the game Lewis Robert totally crushed those 2 homers. Did he like start to overreact in
Yeah,
like
against
a
Maeda.
positive way?
He didn't do that. He
Okay.
said one thing I do remember is he called. This is so minor, but I do remember him calling the Tigers mascot Paws. He called him Southpaw,
Oh,
which was
Southpaws?
funny. Yeah. So I did notice. I'm trying to think now. I did notice him do one other thing. It wasn't like rooting interest.
Yeah.
He said something a little bit wrong, but it was minor.
Yeah.
The coolest thing is the White Sox handled it really well. I thought they gave him a video tribute, or they put him on the video board and let him wave to the crowd, or got a standing ovation from you guys. I thought that was cool. He did choose to leave, so I didn't know if there would be like some acrimony from Sox fans, as you're known as being kind of ornery at times. I thought maybe there'd be some angst towards Benetti, but it was
What the
certainly
fuck,
not
Smitty?
evident. He was borderline emotional. He was really appreciative of the reception. I'm not sure he knew it was coming. It was just a cool moment. Opening day is always fun, but that was an extra added value. It was cool. The White Sox presented him with a deep dish pizza in the booth, which I found a bit ironic. That part of the issue reportedly was that
Well, he's
Jerry did not like
us.
him eating in the booth. Yeah, so now that he's eating in the booth in the Tigers booth, it's not a problem. But I thought that was hilarious. It was a little confusing while he was getting part of his accolades and he was talking about the nice reception, because all of a sudden in the crowd you could hear a lot of booing. And that was because, of course, when Javi Baez was coming up to bat, who was mercilessly booed throughout the series, but that first time up was more than most. But he was able to get on base, immediately stole second, and then scored the winning run. It ended up being the winning run in a 1-0 victory for the Tigers over the stellar Garrett Crochet. So it was an eventful opening day, and there's just a lot going on. It was exciting and fun. It really is, like I said, critical for the Tigers to get off to that hot start. And like I said, most of it is due to the mediocre opponents they've faced so far. They have the Twins, as I mentioned, coming up, and then the Rangers are after that. So that's a tough 8-game stretch. If they can maybe hopefully beat up on a Twins team that has had some injury issues, that could help within the division. Rangers, that's going to be a fun series to talk about. I don't. The Tigers' offense needs to pick it up before they face that opponent. I guess we'll see, but that's pretty much all I have for the Tigers for now. We were talking about the White Sox series. We might as well switch over to your Chicago White Sox.
Wow. Probably could have gone old school and done a fucking Sox type thing podcast on its own. But I'm gonna try
You okay over there?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to
It's like explosions and shit happening.
I'm gonna try to handle this in a succinct manner. So I kind of got 3 groupings tonight. We're gonna talk about losing ugly. We're gonna talk about arguably the worst coach in baseball with some Grifolies, even having had La Russa prior to him. And then we're going to talk about the few positives the White Sox have. So let's start with the bad, the losing ugly. We've got arguably who were going to be considered our top 3 offensive players of the season have been lost to injury already.
Is this the worst? Could this be the worst 2 weeks in White Sox history? I mean, with at least with injuries.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's hard to quantify, I guess. Maybe there was a period during the La Russa era that was worse, a 2-week span. But my God, how do you lose 3 of your best position players to this? Don't they have the exact same injury? Like the hip abductor muscle, like blew out on all of them.
Definitely on Eloy may be back this weekend. So his
Oh my God.
is
We'll see.
minor compared to Moncada. We'll start with Moncada here. That in the fact that
Yeah.
his career is essentially over for the White Sox. He's shelved for 3 to 6 months in a
Yeah.
contract
In a
year.
contract year.
I
Did
get
we
to
pick him to be MVP? Was he your MVP or one of us? I picked him last year, but
No, I don't think we actually
foolishly.
picked him to be MVP, but I think we talked about how we felt like he was going to suddenly emerge as the Moncada that, and he was actually playing fine offensively and defensively, but I mean he wasn't like crushing it yet, but he started out pretty decently overall, but yeah, he's lost 3 to 6 months. It was kind of like you and I were texting, and Josh Naylor almost didn't even know how to react. Like he was like, "Well, I have to
Oh,
tag
at
you.
first base.
Yeah, I have to tag you, but what the fuck, dude? Are you all right?" Someone made a joke on social media on your favorite topic. It said the bullet shot came from outside the park because of because
Oh
of
man.
how he collapsed. So the gunt
Yeah.
gate, gunt gate, which still continues to be a mystery, was referenced, of course, this week in White
Mm.
Sox Twitter. I think the biggest blow, though, is one of the reasons I was excited to still go to the ballpark a lot this year was watching Lewis Robert play, and the
Oh
fact
man.
that it's the same injury that happened 2 years ago. It's a grade 2 versus a grade 3 this time, so it's not like completely separated from
Is
the
that a
bone.
hamstring or a hip?
The hip, yeah, the hip flexor
It is a hip
muscle.
again. Okay.
Yeah, it's not completely separated from the bone. It's a strain, but
Ugh.
I would expect him back around All-Star break, probably at best, and that is is really disappointing on what was already going to be a disappointing season. I mean, no one had delusions of grandeur, but I think my idea of the Sox getting to 70 some wins is really out the door now. But
Yeah. Well, he was a reason to tune into a White Sox game. I mean, that
yeah,
was a reason enough. He beat the fuck out of the Tigers Kenta Maeda in game 2 of this opening series. Two just unbelievable home runs.
yeah, I mean,
Uh that was that he was the reason to tune in. Now he's gone. And they're all injured running to first base. Like
yeah,
what like Robert looked like he misstepped, like he hit first base and that jarred something wrong. But Moncada was down before he got to first
yeah,
base, and
he was.
Eloy was down by the time he got out of the batter's box.
Yeah, he was like
Uh,
a slow walk to first.
yeah, I wrote. I don't know if I posted this on Twitter, but that was actually Easter Sunday, so I had
Yes.
religion on my mind somehow, and that was the third game of the season, so I wrote, and on the third day, Eloy, and on the third day he erodes Eloy
Yeah, I think you did put
331.
that. I think you sent that to
Yeah.
me or did post that. I remember reading that. But yeah, I mean it's more the same. I'm not gonna, put that on one of the few things I'm not gonna put on Grifol, but like I don't know what it is. I mean, there's other teams who manage to stay fairly healthy with guys who are equally as muscular and built as those
Well,
three players are. Ozzy made a joke that
yeah,
they're too muscular, that they just need to be
can't pull fat.
you can't pull fat. And you know, okay. I mean, we have seen a lot of guys who have not looked in great physical shape do very well in baseball. I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, I mean, I think it comes down to, and maybe this does go back on the Sox coaching staff. I mean, are these guys doing their routine workouts that are supposed to be preventing this type of thing? And that's has to be the answer to that. Total speculation, but it has to be no. It has to be no.
Yeah.
I could run to first base. I'm in not good shape, by the way. I could probably run to first base for an entire season without injuring myself at my full speed.
Why
If
don't
you're
you do
not,
that for the next 162 days and
I'm
four
going
times a
to. You
day
know
and tell me
what?
how that goes?
I'm going to. I'm going to, you
All right.
motherfucker. I'm going to do it.
Get somebody to record that. That's some good social media content.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
I'm gonna. In fact, maybe I am gonna return to the park on Saturday for. mean, the Reds are in town. I might as well go watch Ellie De La Cruz. I mean, I'm only trying to go to Sox games when there's a decent team in town. So, but anyway, maybe I'll just jump on the field and run the first. That'll be really good video.
Yeah, I mean, if we really want to go viral, shit, that's one way to do it. But I'm not sure that'll be so good for you.
I mean, it's a normal
Eventually,
activity. It's
ending
a
up with a
normal activity
slammer.
there. It's a normal activity there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. There's not much more to say about it other than it's business as usual.
I had a couple notes though
Yeah, go ahead.
about specifically Moncada. The Grifol before the game said they knew he had a nagging hip
Oh yeah,
injury that he
yeah,
was dealing with. So the Sox were fully aware that he had an issue. I think Grifol said he thought he's doing a really good job of maintaining it, and then
yeah.
immediately he blows out his fucking hip. So it's kind of weird that the Sox are fully aware of these issues before they happen, but they continue to happen.
Yeah, and I think teams rely too. This is all teams. They rely on the players saying, "Are do you feel okay to play or what?" And obviously Moncada said, "Yeah, I'm okay. I can play through it." But apparently it was worse than that. You would have thought, as a responsible organization, they would have ran some sort of test where they may have
Yeah.
noticed, like, "Hey, if we shut you down for 2 weeks, you can play the rest of the season,"
Yeah.
or something
Well,
like
the other
that. But
disturbing part of that is, they're a week or not even 2 weeks into the season. He's already had a nagging injury for several days.
I mean,
So, I mean,
it's incredible. Maybe everyone knew something when they traded all these guys to the White Sox that they all
oh
were going to be
boy.
injury prone. I mean, it's just crazy because I mean, let's not forget, Yoan Moncada was the number one prospect in all of baseball, not the number one prospect in the Red Sox organization. He was the number
Yeah.
one prospect in all of baseball for Chris Sale, and he was the can't miss, and he was going to be he was going to be a Hall of Famer. And you know what? He's not
Mm.
going to be that. And
I remember Rick was trying to go after Rafael Devers, and they had to settle for Moncada, which didn't seem like much of a settlement at the time. But
now it
yeah, I
is
think you, yeah, I'd say opposite ends of the spectrum there.
losing.
I had one set of stats on Eloy that you're probably fully aware of, but he's played 439 games in his major league career.
Yeah.
He has 89 home runs, but he's been on the IL 21 times
Yeah, I saw
in
that.
his career.
I posted that on
Did you post it?
social
Okay, maybe
media
I stole it from you then.
that said that would be what his Hall of Fame entry is, most injured player in history of baseball, and they would the plaque would list out all his injuries.
Oh my
So
god, it's a
yeah,
long list.
it's a long fucking list, and I'm sure it'll only get longer. The odd turn of events here is so we have Moncada go down, and somehow the White Sox going into Game 2 of the Cleveland series, as they were shut out the night before, had scored. I'm glad you're sitting down for this. Over 10 games, they had scored a total of 16 runs. So do the math there. That's 1.6 runs a game.
It's
But
not going to win many games.
somehow without all these stars, suddenly they explode for 13 runs over 2 games, almost matching their total run total for the year against the Guardians, which was crazy to watch. I actually watched 2 White Sox games in a row because it was enjoyable to watch the offense. Of course, it was not enjoyable to watch the bullpen outside of
The bullpen.
Kopech and his 101
Mm.
mile an hour fastball and striking out 6 batters. But of course, Grifol uses them for 2 innings. So then last night they can't use them. And what happens? Well, here's what happened. The
Bullpen
Sox,
implosion.
yeah, bullpen explosion. But I'm going to hold that thought because that's in my Grifoli section.
Sorry.
My last 2 things on this portion is we had heard how the Sox really were sharpened up the defense this year, and that's why they got the Young and Nicky Lopez, and injuries have forced other guys into the game now. But for some reason, DeYoung doesn't seem to be playing shortstop on a regular basis. They keep playing this rookie guy, Shoemake, who's got a pretty decent bat, but
He was good against the Tigers. I remember
yeah,
him.
what was interesting is the first 9 games of the year, they were 4th in the league in fielding. They had only committed 2 errors. They had like a 989 or 990 something fielding percentage. Then the next 2 games, they committed 6 errors in 2 games. They committed 6
Yikes.
errors, and then another error last night that dropped them all the way down to like 21st in the league in defense. And we're like right back where we were. I mean, I'm hoping those 2 games were some strange anomaly, but you got to think to yourself, probably not. But like yet another like bag of fucking dicks sold to White Sox fans on improvements of the team this year. And that's why we got these guys. My last real like 100% like just bitch is we didn't podcast last week because I had all this shit going on because it was spring break for my kids. So we were running around the city, which was a shitty week to be doing stuff in Chicago where it rained and snowed and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And the snow came on Wednesday when we were supposed to go see the White Sox take on the Atlanta Braves at 1:10.
That sucks.
So let me break this down for you. I'm looking at Doppler radar to sound like Hawk, try to sound like Hawk there. I'm looking at Doppler radar, and there didn't look like there was any window. And if there was a window, it was maybe going to be at 3 o'clock then. So we're all sitting patiently waiting for this game to be postponed. And every forecast is it's going to be precipitation all day into the night. White Sox release a lineup at around 10:30, followed by the Braves releasing a lineup. It's 11. There's no cancellation. Me and the kids start to head into the city because we were at my mom's house. Robin heads over to the park, public transportation. She gets to the park before us and goes up. Luckily, we were in like the 300 level, which has like a heated area. We get to the ballpark around 12:40. Now, the game is not canceled yet. As we walk into the gates, this person comes down and tells the ticket scanners as they scan our tickets that they just postponed the game.
Oh
At
my God.
12
That's
fucking
nuts.
40, exactly 30 minutes before first pitch, on a day where there was no, I mean, we have seen games by every team postponed the day before based on a forecast the next day. And your current manager on the Cubs, Craig Counsell, has been in the Cubs ass for one time. The Cubs did that, and then it ended up being sunny the next day. And he's like, I don't know, he made jokes about it, like why they weren't playing, but like
he got a sunburn while they were postponed.
yeah, right, something like that, exactly. So in this case, this forecast was dead on. So we go up to get Robin. And she's like, did you just hear? I'm like, yeah, we actually heard as we walked in, and we weren't sure if the guy was joking or not. So I'm like, well, let's go to the gift shop, and then let's go to the bar and grill because we're going to the White Sox game. I didn't eat lunch. I'm ready to have some ballpark food, right? This is how shitty of an organization the White Sox are. We go to the what the hell's the Chicago Sports Depot. Look to see what's new and out and all there. And then we go to the Chi Sox Bar and Grill. Now, the Chi Sox Bar and Grill says they are open up to 2 hours after every White Sox game. So to me, the cancellation happened at 12:40. So that would mean they were open till 2:40. As we walk in at 1:15,
oh no,
they say, hey, just want to let you know, we're not serving, there's no more food for today. We're done serving food. But if you want a drink, you can have a drink, but we're shutting down at 1:15. And I looked at the guy and I said, let me get this straight. You make us come to the ballpark at over lunchtime, and then you guys aren't going to serve anyone food because you all want to go home. I'm like, this is a terribly run organization. Like, we walked out.
Oh man.
I mean, I'm appalled. I'm appalled at the idea of like shutting all the shit down. At least like there was a decent amount of people who actually still showed up because I thought they were trying to force the game in because when is Atlanta gonna be back?
That's a problem.
Their trip in town for the Cubs was in the middle of a 10 games in a row stretch, so there wasn't going to be time to make up the game then. Now it turns out the game's getting made up, and I can use my tickets on June 24th or 27th or something. June
If you're
27th.
free, if your kids are free, I
Yeah,
mean, that's
yeah,
that's crazy.
but it's like it's shitty, and it's shitty
Why
that
did they wait?
to
I mean,
wait
that's the
and
problem.
then to not serve the people who are there. Like,
Yeah, that's shit.
it's total shit. It's just another stain on what is going to be a year that is just a big
Oh.
smear of shit. But yeah. But somehow I'm still going to show back up there on Saturday because I'm
Yeah.
addicted to baseball.
You guys got served a shit sandwich and you're all gonna have to take a bite.
That's right. I mean, I did make up for it. We did take the kids to the Brewers game on Sunday. I picked a place that
Yeah, I saw that. You posted
had a
stuff on social media. That was cool.
had a covering. We got 4 tickets. Check this out. 4 tickets, like 10th row of the upper deck for $62 that included a hot dog and a soda.
Oh, nice.
Unbelievable.
And now your kids are Brewers fans.
Well, I may become a Brewers fan now.
You might have to.
I might have to. I mean, they kicked the shit out of the Mariners. It was 14-2. It was awesome.
Nice.
Your boy had 2 homers in the game.
My boy?
Yeah, your favorite ex-catcher of the Cubs, Wilson Contreras.
He's with the Cardinals.
No, he's with the Brewers now.
No, it's his brother.
I know, I'm joking.
Okay. Wow, that was terrible.
I was trying to trick you. All right.
Well, it would lead well into my part that I want to talk about with the White Sox. April Fool's Day. You were trying to fool me right there, but lots happened to your White Sox on April Fool's Day, if you can recall, 10 days ago or so. It started out with Mike Clevenger being signed, which immediately everyone just thought was an April Fool's joke, as it just didn't seem like something that the White Sox would do knowingly. They signed him last year before they knew about any of his potential foibles, shall we say, that he has been exonerated of. But there's basically no doubt that Mike Clevenger is not a good guy, and the White Sox are happy to get in bed with him again.
Trouble
Enraging
finds
part
Mike
of the fan
Clevenger.
base. What's
I'm
that?
sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I said trouble finds Mike
No,
Clevenger.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it somehow does. I think you were joking about that. We might as well go all in and sign Trevor Bauer as well.
Why not?
At this point, who gives a fuck? Clevenger has not pitched yet, though, has he? He's
No.
probably still ramping up.
Yep.
He never really had a spring training. So
Right.
the other eventful moment on April Fool's Day for you guys is the game was actually delayed for a period as your first base coach was missing. Jason Bourgeois, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Did you hear this story?
I
Were
know
you watching this game?
I know this story. He was apparently so involved in watching video of how to position players. He needs a video on how to position players, that he was just that intense. And, Pedro, he had no problem with it because he was working. He just got lost in it.
That was Pedro's explanation, except video evidence showed Bourgeois running up the steps belatedly, tucking in his shirt into his pants, suggesting that he was probably caught taking a shit. I think that's, if you use Occam's razor, the most plausible explanation is probably the what actually happened. I think that's probably what happened. I think he was taking a shit and Pedro was covering for him.
I don't know why.
I'm not sure why Pedro couldn't just say like he was otherwise disposed. It won't happen again. It was an emergency situation, but I've never seen a game delayed because of a missing first base coach. I forget who you guys are playing at that time, but the road crew, the announcers were marveling at that. Like they figured out what was going on. The Braves got, okay. That was that series, of course. They had never heard of a game being delayed because there's no first base coach. You didn't know that there had to be a first base coach out there, which is just, I didn't know that either. Then you could hear, I mean, there were so few people in the ballpark, you could hear the conversations going on, like, get anybody out there. But you've got to have like the helmet at least to man first base now, or to be the first base coach. So that delayed things further, but finally your coach got out there. But that led to a lot of jokes, April Fool's jokes, speculation of what may have happened to your coach. I saw on social media, somebody posted, maybe the Royals had tried not using a first base coach, so you guys had to try that as well.
Good one.
Jerry is waiting for taxpayers to pay for his first base coach. Thought
Ooh.
that was good. One I had, I didn't see out there, but I thought maybe the Legui family finally got to the first base coach like they did Tom Gamboa, but 15, 20 years ago
Well,
when
that's
they ran
why
onto the field and attacked the Royals' first base coach.
that's why you're the only one with it, because you're still hanging on to that shit.
I'm the only one, yes.
All
But I do
Cubs
believe he
fans.
was. Well, it is kind of a remarkable thing when you have fans run onto the field and start beating the fuck out of an old elderly man at only doing his job. So, regardless, I think he was taking a shit, which it would have been. I mean, that's a bit comical. It's understandable. It's more funny that Pedro is covering for him, that trying to say he was so locked in his video
Yeah.
study that he just completely forgot about the game.
Yeah, Ozzy was like, why don't you just say, Ozzy basically took your take on it. He's like, it happens. He's like, I was coaching third and I was in a conversation and I wasn't where I was supposed to be, and they all started yelling at me because they need to start the game. And Ozzy was actually saying it's happened before.
Yeah.
It's just like it happened to happen on this broadcast, and the Sox are under such a fucking microscope, and we know everything that's going on, so we saw it firsthand. But he said it happened to him twice when he was a coach for the Braves.
I think that's the reaction of someone who's secure in their position. Ozzy, he would own up to anything like that, and it shows how insecure Pedro has to be, understandably.
Yeah.
Trying to cover up for any minor weirdness with the organization and that is happening all the time in different amazing ways. So I think it speaks to that.
Speaking
I
of,
hijacked your White Sox segment, but I don't know if you had more.
yeah, no, that was perfect because that I was, that I had that under my Grifolies for the week, the no first base coach. So we can continue
Oh, sorry.
down that path. We'll go to the KC series, the red hot Kansas City Royals, who actually are 3 games over 500. They're tied with your Tigers, I believe.
They might be ahead.
Shocked by this whole thing, but the White Sox can jumpstart any organization. There was a play in center field. I think this was a day after Lewis Robert got injured, and Dominic Fletcher was out there, and MJ Melendez crushed a ball, but he didn't hit it out of the park. In fact, the ball actually hit about, I want to say, 5 inches below the wall, and it hit the wall first, then it hit Dominic Fletcher's glove, and as it hit his glove, it went over the wall. So the first thing I said, especially when they showed it in slow-mo and they show it hit the wall and start to project downward, was, well, that's a ground rule double, because the ball has made contact with the lower part of the wall and a glove and then went over. So I looked up the rule, and in fact, that is correct. By rule, that was a ground rule double. But somehow, the White Sox did not challenge the play, which would have put runners on second and third versus 2 runs in. And I believe they lost that game by 1 run too, and may have actually won it, perhaps, if they had stranded those runners. So, and then after the game, Pedro Grifol's like, yeah, I think I should have challenged the home run on Saturday this is on Sunday. I should have challenged the home run in Saturday in KC. Yes, it was a ground rule double. I mean,
that does not help. I mean, if you're not going to do it, just ignore it then. I mean, saying that you should have done it is not helping.
No. And then he challenges an obvious home run the next night to try to make up for it. Just waste a challenge.
Oh, God.
Just waste a fucking challenge. And I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Then, we all know this. We talked about this preseason. The dude's obsessed with fucking bunting. And bunting cost the White Sox the game last night. It cost the White Sox the game last night. I could have been on here talking about a 2-game winning streak. Our 3rd win of the year I could have been talking about. But no, I'm not. You know why? Because he bunted twice in the game, including a bunt that got Pilar over to third with 1 out. The next play was a walk. No, I did this wrong. The bunt was safe. runners on first and third. There was one out in the inning. No, there's no outs in the inning. Pilar's at third. The next batter hits into a drawn infield double play. Now, there's two things that went wrong here. One, the third base coach did not send Pilar
like on contact.
It didn't have to be on contact. The shortstop turned his back.
Yeah.
How do you not immediately send the runner? Again, we may have won the game in regulation versus going to extras, where in extras, he bunts again for an out, and we strand after Gavin Sheets drives in the run, who had a hell of a game last night and has a hell of a start to the season, which we're going to talk about more later. But
yeah, he might be a badass of the week.
Yeah, but it's like, how do you get him to third? You stranded him at third too because of fucking bunting. Like, are we not over the fact that the giving up the out is a bad idea?
I mean, we kind of joked about it before the season started, how they had talked about how they were such fans of bunting, and it was like, this is not 1982. I mean,
yeah.
we've evolved. We do not, giving up outs is just not the way to win ball games. It's empirically proved. Yet somehow that message has not gotten to Pedro Grifol. That's brutal.
And what's even worse,
the base running error is just that's egregious though. Not scoring on a double play when you're standing on third base. Yeah, I mean, if he wasn't going on contact, like you said, as soon as the shortstop turns his back, you go. He cannot throw you out. Essentially, it was a free run.
The shortstop, now they were playing in. The shortstop turned his back and ran to second.
Oh, I didn't even know that part.
Yes,
wow.
Yes, it's unfathomable that we didn't score the run.
I mean, it's almost like they knew that you weren't going to run. I mean, how would he take that much time to do a double play and not even worry about the run coming in? Wow.
Unbelievable.
Yikes.
Then to continue, like the Grifoli of the year in the game, earlier in the game, they intentionally walked Josh Naylor, and it works out. This time we're in extras with one out and a runner on second. We pitch to Josh Naylor, who, after wasting Gavin Sheets' leadoff double with bunting and stranding that run, instead of scoring 2 runs in the extras, we only score the 1. Josh Naylor ties the game up. Then what do? We intentionally walk the batter after Josh Naylor. I mean,
all right.
There is no fucking logic. It's like pitching to Jose Ramirez with a runner in scoring position and the game's on the line. And first base is open. You don't.
You can't do that.
You don't. You give them the pass and you take your chances, and no one is going to, fucking say a thing about it. But this fucking idiot isn't smart enough. Again, he intentionally walked him in a less dire situation than trying to hold on to the 1-run lead that you maybe would have scored 2 runs if you decided to hit instead of bunt when we had a runner in scoring position. But I don't know. I was so pissed yesterday. I don't even know why. I don't expect anything out of this season, but the fact when you're that close and you're finally scoring runs, and we know the bullpen outside of a couple arms, this Wilson guy they got in the trade, which we, talked about is going to be someone they probably flip at the trade deadline. He's been good from the Padres, and obviously Kopech. Now he's come out and said he wants to be the closer. So with that mentality, he's going out there and letting it go.
Nice.
If he can stay healthy, I mean, again, he's another guy. If he can stay healthy because of the short amount of work, 100%. You got a few decent arms there. But outside of that, it's a crapshoot. You probably get good performances here and there. So you have to expect, if your starting pitcher is leaving with a 1-run lead in the 6th inning, the 5th or 6th inning, that it's going to be a fucking roller coaster till you get to the end. So you can't be giving up outs by bunting. You have to be intelligent about your play. And he is just not a good manager. And I really, if Chris Getz is really watching this and really dissecting this, I actually think one of my, questions for the White Sox, the things we looked at preseason, I don't think he's going to make it. or if he makes it, he's going to be dismissed at the end of this season.
I've got a impromptu
ASKHOLE?
ASKHOLE question.
Go right ahead.
If you had to choose one, you know where I'm going with this. If you had to choose one manager, would you choose Pedro Grifol or Tony La Russa to be running the 2024 Chicago White Sox? If that is not the perfect ASKHOLE question, it just came to me right then while you were going through this.
Now wait, can I ask a question back? Can I ask a question back? I just want to know.
Those are against the rules. Those are against the ASKHOLE rules.
Well, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it that it's 2024. So I will take La Russa because now he's healthy and he might.
Oh yeah, he beat cancer or whatever he had.
Maybe not alcoholism, but definitely cancer. But so he might be in a better frame of mind and might be a little more fucking focused. And I feel like if he was actually focused and knew what the fuck was going on, results may have been a little bit different. And he did manage somehow to cobble together 93 wins the one season. So I'm going La Russa over Grifol 100%.
I think that's the right answer. And maybe this is another horrific thought I had, but maybe that is the plan. Like if Grifol has to be let go, which it's trending in that direction, does La Russa just step in as the interim manager? He never left the organization.
He's hanging out
right there, ready to go.
I'm going to say hi to him at the park on Saturday. Hey, Tony. Fuck you.
I think it could happen. I think is that like a ridiculous thing to think?
No, you know what? I never even considered that, but you may be onto something there.
I think it's more plausible than Ozzie Guillen stepping into the managerial role.
Oh, that's because they'd have to keep him, and then they'd be fucking way better again. But why would we do that?
But if they have to make an emergency move, who better to step in than TLR?
TLR back in the saddle again.
That would be tremendous for this podcast. That's all I'm saying. I'm rooting for that for the podcast, if for nothing else. But sorry to put those thoughts into your head, but I had to express them. That's the whole reason we have this fucking podcast.
No, that's interesting. You know what? Who cares really at this point? I mean, if he's back in there, he's back in there. I mean, fine.
Yeah.
I mean, the season, as Pedro likes to say, the 2024 season, flush it. I mean, it is what it is. But you know what? I didn't want to be a complete downer. I originally sent Smitty, we send each other outlines. We are somewhat professional. And
no, we're not professional.
I read back and looked at my outline. And I'm like, it's just all negatives. There have been a few glimmers of hope this season. One, we'll be talking about in more detail. Garrett Crochet, he has exceeded expectations. The question is, as Smitty and I have talked about over text, is he going to be pitching in August? I mean, like, what is his limitations? I mean, they have used him as if he has been a starting pitcher his entire career.
I think he has more innings than anyone in the American League right now. I mean, he's already got 18 innings. He obviously started opening day. You and I went into that assuming he was going to pitch 3 innings at the most, and he pitched into the 6th, didn't he? Did he get into the 7th?
Yes, he was tremendous. The 6th, yeah.
That's fine, and he's been dominant. He's got the 2 ERA. He's been incredible. What does he have? 21 strikeouts in 18 innings.
Ty Chris Sale.
You're gonna have him. There's no way a guy can go from 12 innings last year and 73 in his entire major league career. He's not gonna pitch 180 innings suddenly. If you do, you're blowing out his arm. So there's got to be some kind of innings limit, and maybe that's the idea. Just let him go as long as we can early in the season. We'll shut him down in this pace. Late June, I would think before the All-Star break, they're gonna have to shut him down after he gets over 100 innings.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know if they've said anything about a plan. I don't know if they've been asked about what the plan is, but no one is expecting him to start opening day. And if he did, it was going to be as like we were calling him the opening day opener. That has not been the case. So far it's working out great, but I mean, is this a desperate Pedro Grifol trying to win games any way he can? And Crochet is obviously your best option. to go deep into games right now, but it cannot go deep into the season the way at this pace, at least.
No, and just going back to the Clevenger signing, obviously there's no upside for the Clevenger signing other than the idea that for $3 million, you got a guy who can come in, not be terrible.
Well, he was your best pitcher
Yeah,
last
he
year,
was the
so I
best pitcher.
understand that side of it.
Not be terrible, but he has no trade value. No one wants him. Anyone could have had him in the offseason. So there's not that upside where there's like other guys you may have put on your roster this year who are veterans or something that may have some sort of trade value at the deadline, that if they have a good enough first half, he could come out and have a fucking 1 ERA for whatever games he pitches for us before the All-Star break, and it won't matter. They couldn't trade him last year at the All-Star break. Now, granted, he had like a quad problem, I think, or something, that he didn't pitch like the last couple of games going into the All-Star break. So a couple of weeks he was out. But even that being said, the fact that 29 other teams had a chance to sign him to their roster and they wanted nothing to do with him in the offseason is proof that, they're just like, we don't want to deal with the headache that could come with Mike Clevenger. So the Sox definitely signed him with the idea that he is going to be pitching with them through the end of the season. So that could be part of the answer. They waited. They saw Crochet's pitching like this. And to your point, exactly what you said, Smitty. They're just going to let him go till it's like, all right, you got one game in August and you're done. We got this guy and we'll call up, maybe a couple of those, younger arms we got to get them some seasoning in the majors in September. And that's it. Cause every GM's going to come on and say, I'm trying to build a roster so that we're competitive. But, Chris gets new and they all knew like this is a rebuild season. So, try to make the games at least tolerable for fans to watch. And 1-run losses are painful, but at least they're in the games, so it hasn't been totally horrible. But yeah, besides Garrett Crochet, and the starting pitching as a whole has not been terrible. They're like number 8 in ERA in the AL right now. In fact, oddly enough, they're like 3 spots ahead of the Tigers right now, which is an ERA that is mind-boggling to me. I'm sure.
Wow, it's a couple bad outings, several bad outings.
It's gonna pan out in the end for the Tigers, but and all that'll even out. But Crochet is one of the reasons the ERA is as slow as it is. But outside of that, the only other like true real bright spot is I've preached patience about this guy, about him not having enough at bats, but Gavin Sheets right now is looking exactly like everything he was supposed to be, but has never had regular playing time and has always played out of position. Now with all the injuries, has the opportunity to just DH and play first base, and Vaughn can DH. So, and without having Abreu there too. So I don't know. I'm not, it's early, but the fucking home run he hit in Cleveland last night, even he just stopped. I think it was like 460 some feet. It was fucking destroyed. So I hope it continues for him. And again, if the Sox want to, a left-handed power bat at the trade deadline, if he has a like lights out first half of the season, that's an opportunity there. He's controllable. You might be able to get a decent amount back for him if he can have a good first half of the season. Flip side is if he comes into being that left-handed power bat that we've been hearing about, then why would you do that? Because you can have control over him for the next few years. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. I'm jumping way far ahead because we got a lot of season left. But right now, I love me some Gavin Sheets, Smitty.
I don't blame you. I think he's going to show up in our Badass of the Week segment. He might be the eventual winner. We've got a lot of nominees to go through.
Yeah, and
I almost forgot to put him on the list until I looked up his OPS plus is like 229.
Right, yeah, it's insane.
Insane.
Yeah. But with that long ass diatribe on the White Sox, I don't have anything left unless you have anything to add.
Yeah, I think we might have to break that out into its own Sox type thing podcast, standalone.
I
There's
need
a
a
lot going on there.
swig of the champagne of beers right now.
Yeah, thank God this is a Thirsty Thursday. I guess we could be drinking anytime we want, but Thirsty Thursday seem perfectly appropriate to be able to talk about the White Sox for 45 minutes to an hour, or whatever we just did. Well, that moves us over to the north side of town, where it took a mere 5 innings for the Cubs' plan and Jed Hoyer's lack of planning to be exposed, as Justin Steele went down in a heap with a strained hamstring running to first base, and their ace in an already thin rotation is now out. It sounds like he'll be back fairly soon, but for an already thin rotation on for the Cubs, it is a devastating blow. They've dealt with it quite well, surprisingly, in the 12 subsequent games, the 7-5 record thus far. But it just points out what I thought was obvious, and somehow Jed did not think it would be such an issue, is the lack of depth in that rotation. He failed to add extra free agents, and I understand if there's a budget issue, as they did approach the bullshit tax threshold. They are spending money, but why not trade for somebody such as maybe Dylan Cease, who just shoved it up their ass in San Diego last night?
He sure did fist them pretty good last night.
Yeah, that was, except for a Michael Busch 2-on homer, it was a dominant performance by Dylan Cease and the Padres. But it just illustrates, it's just, I could not believe that it only took 5 innings for Jed's lack of planning to bite him in the ass. It's something I talk about all off season. I certainly talked about in the last podcast, and here it is. It looks like their plan all along was to lean on their robust farm system, as they called it Ben Brown, to fill in so far for Justin Steele. That did not work out so well in his first outing, as he got shelled for 6 runs in like an inning and 2/3, I think, in Texas. Completely unprepared. He just got called up in, I believe, his second or third game of the season, so it's a bit understandable. He has subsequently recovered an 8 2/3 inning since then. He's only given up 1 earned run, I believe, 10 strikeouts. So the talent is definitely there for Ben Brown. The issue is he's a 2-pitch pitcher. He's got a fastball and a curveball, and that is, he's destined to be in the bullpen. Maybe a complete lights out bullpen arm. But if the Cubs want to lean on him as a rookie to replace their ace, that is a horrific plan. You could say they could call up Cade Horton, one of their other top pitching prospects. Again, that's another wild card crapshoot. We'll see how that turns out. It just really bothers me that I fucking talked about it the whole time.
You did.
Not a genius. Anybody could see it coming. I did not think it would happen so quickly, but you have to be prepared for that. They always talk about, you don't need 5 starting pitchers coming out of spring training. You need 8 at least. And the Cubs didn't even have 4 when it came down to it. They've already had more. They're the only team in the majors who have more innings out of their bullpen than from their starters. The only team. And that is a recipe for a fucking disaster. They are above water right now, but you keep taxing your bullpen to that level, and it turns into a horrific second half of the season. So they need to get healthy quickly. Jameson Taillon is coming back fairly soon, it sounds like. He's been mediocre in his Cubs career so far, so I'm not sure what to expect out of him. Just all the things I talked about. It's so frustrating that you could see it coming and it was not addressed, and now it totally comes back to bite them. They limp through, got a win in the Texas series to start the season, which Texas admittedly is a fantastic team, the world champions. They are struggling with their pitching staff right now, so the Cubs kind of lit them up. Cubs offense has been very good so far this season. Hopefully that continues despite Cody Bellinger's struggles. They've been carried by Christopher Morel and Seiya Suzuki. So that's been fun to watch, putting up plenty of runs. But fear for the bullpen after being taxed by such a thin rotation. Second series of the season had Colorado coming into Chicago and the return of Chris Bryant. I think he went 0 for 10 in the series. Very sad Chris Bryant, as we've chronicled. All the things we talked about. We had that interview in The Athletic several months ago talking about how sad he was.
Right.
It was just an odd article, and he made it sound like life was sort of happening to him instead of him being on top of the world with a close to $200 million contract. He can do anything he wants. He just chose to sign with Colorado and said he didn't realize how shitty the organization was. Should have done more research. Talked about how much pressure was on him in Chicago. He did reveal, and this didn't happen during the series, this actually happened last week after that series, but he did say that he had received death threats at some point, which I found shocking and really sad. I think that's awful. But I'm trying to piece together when those death threats came or where they possibly could have come from. I don't think he's receiving death threats in Colorado. I don't think the fans are all that up in arms necessarily, or maybe it could be an isolated Unabomber type person, but sending him a single death threat. But I'm guessing it happened during the end of his time in Chicago, whether that was from frustrated Cubs fans or I'm not going to throw White Sox fans under the bus, but it could happen.
Oh, God.
The only thing I can think of is him signing with Colorado. Disgruntled Cubs fans were sending him death threats because he didn't sign with the Cubs, even though I don't think that was on the table. It's just weird. I guess I never considered that someone like Chris Bryant would receive death threats, or who should, no one should receive death threats, but he'd be the last guy I would think would have to suffer that. And maybe that is kind of colors that article, like how, this career isn't turning out quite the way he thought. And it's more of a pain in the ass than he thought. And dealing with the horrors of social media is more than he bargained for. It sort of led to more. Yeah, I know it sucks, but I don't know. It sucks that anyone's getting death threats for anything, but I think it affected him more than most, and for him to actually bring it up just raises questions. So,
isn't it obvious who's sending them the death threats or who did?
I don't know. What's your theory?
Steve Bartman.
Oh, I see.
Returning the favor.
Wow. Returning the favor. Well, that was 12 years before Chris Bryant arrived in the organization.
But, hey, 20. We talked about things 20 years ago for the White Sox, so I thought I'd,
all right. Okay, fair play.
Touché is what you should say.
Cubs, yes, touché. the Cubs did sweep that series, fortunately, 3-0. That led to a very productive series against the Dodgers last weekend, which was a surprising 2-1 series victory over a team that spent $1.4 billion in the offseason. Kind of amazing that the Cubs were able to go toe-to-toe with them and come out on the winning end. That great feeling from the weekend evaporated very quickly as the Cubs went on the road to San Diego. And Monday night, as they were playing on the West Coast, I am in the Eastern time zone, which is really affecting me late in life now that I'm in my 50s. I didn't realize how cool, I think I did, but I'm realizing more and more how cool the Central time zone is. It's like the happy medium.
Sure is.
I loved it when I lived in Chicago. I am not liking the Eastern time zone at all. As games on the West Coast start at 10 o'clock. I don't feel like staying up till 1 a.m. to watch a baseball game, but I thought I could go to bed Monday night after the Cubs took an 8-0 lead and rest well, sleep well throughout the night, knowing they had won the game, only to wake up to learn that they had lost the game 9-8, and just a brutal collapse. Obviously, I did not see it. I did not care to catch up on exactly everything that happened, but clearly the bullpen fell apart in a frustrating manner. Fortunately, they were able to salvage a 5-1 win on the next day, Tuesday, thanks to a massive grand slam by Christopher Morel, who will come up in our Badass of the Week discussions later. Then last night, Part of the issue I've had with the Cubs rotation is they're relying on Kyle Hendricks, now 35 years old, to essentially be their number 2 starter, or number 3 at least. He is showing his age. He gave up, I forget how many runs he gave up. They ended up losing 10-2. Very uncompetitive in the third time through the rotation. He's not getting anyone out after batters see him for a third time. So it was interesting. Everyone pointed out on the radio today, this was his second worst 3-game span in his career. No one ever talks about what his first worst 3-game span in his career was, but it would be really bad considering what he's done so far this season. That is very concerning. And another obvious thing that I pointed out, and anybody could point out going into the season, is you cannot have Kyle Hendricks, as solid as a veteran as he is. You can't rely on him to be your number 2 starter. You can't rely on him to be your number 3. He is a serviceable 4 or 5 at this point in his career. And I would be happy with that. And that is not how Jed Hoyer constructed this rotation. And it is getting worse before it gets better. Another taxing day on the bullpen, leading to that stat that I mentioned earlier, that they are the only team in Major League Baseball to have more innings out of the relievers than their starters. This is trending in the worst of directions. So fortunately, they got out to the 7-5 record so far, but I'm concerned where that's going to go from here, as they have one of the toughest April schedules. They've got Seattle coming up next this weekend. So that's going to be, as they are another playoff contender, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But then they have another West Coast trip out to the NL champion Diamondbacks. So it doesn't get easier from here. So that rotation and bullpen is going to be taxed. Hopefully the offense, led by Suzuki and Morel, can keep putting up big numbers. That's really the way they're going to get through this, but we shall see.
All right. So I guess we'll move over, speaking of the West Coast, to the Giants.
I think we should move over to your Giants, and I think you had an idea for reviving an old segment of ours that we had, Panic or Patience.
That's right. Panic or patience with the Giants. In particular, their hitting. Right now, it's statistically no matter what stat you run, no matter how you parse it up, it's about 21 in the major leagues in hitting. And they have a roster.
Thanks.
In case you missed my Nostradamus show, I'm all in on the Giants this year. But
you're beyond all in. You have the Cy Young and the MVP and the World Series championship all going to the Giants.
That's right. Everything is
Rookie of the year?
Giants. Luckily, yeah, Rookie of the Year too. Luckily, it's still April. So I'm going to preach patience. There's been some signs of life coming out of the Giants hitters. I think the beer's getting to me. Soler has gotten a home run. Chapman had 2 home runs in a game. They scored 7 runs last night. Things are starting to come around. And I think by the time we roll into mid-May and Blake Snell is able to actually pitch a normal amount of innings because of limitations right now, and Rusty.
Yeah, he made his first start, didn't he? Last night, 3 innings.
Couple nights ago, yeah, it was only 3 innings. Part of it was pitch count. It took him a lot to get through that. Ump was a little stingy, but whatever. I didn't expect him to go out and have some lights out performance, especially since he didn't have a normal spring training. So I think as the season continues on, the Giants are going to start getting some momentum. The only thing that was, really frustrating to watch is, unfortunately, they had to play the Dodgers right off the bat, and that series did not go well, and it was really frustrating to watch. But I'm confident, currently at 5-8, that they will turn this thing around. To your point, the Dodgers lost 2 out of 3 to the Cubs. They are, on paper, by far the superior organization.
You're welcome.
And I didn't thank you. You didn't play in the game. And so I think it's going to work out fine for them this year. So I'm sticking with patience. But yeah, one of the surprising highlights, and this kind of falls under the mystery of similar to Garrett Crochet, and this guy's been a reliever and he hasn't pitched that much. He's been injury prone. Well, the Giants are doing the same thing with Jordan Hicks. Let me give you Jordan Hicks numbers. He's 2-0 with a 1 ERA over 3 starts, 18 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts, and a .833 whip.
Nice.
This guy has been a reliever most of his career. He's coming off an injury, just like Crochet, and he's been pitching lights out. So again, this goes back. Is he gonna be in the same boat as Crochet? But they know they have Robbie Ray coming back at the midpoint of the season. So they don't have to worry about what they're doing with Jordan Hicks right now, and they can have him move into more like a lower starting role and maybe skip some starts and still have them throughout the year. But, it's kind of crazy, like drawing comparisons to the two main teams I follow have two pitchers in the same exact situation with very similar numbers, that you throw caution to the wind that they already have 18 innings over 3 starts, where you thought it should be more around the range of 12 to maybe 15 at the max. You know what I mean? So, but I guess you're riding the hot hand, and Jordan Hicks has been. It looks like the Giants made the right move. So hopefully they can build up his arm strength and things will work out there.
I think your Robbie Ray theory makes the most sense. He's coming into the second half of the season, hopefully, to fill in that role. That is a plausible plan. Like, if you're gonna try to get the most out of Hicks, like, then you can know that former Cy Young Award winner is coming into your rotation after that. That's a plausible plan. White Sox are doing. I'm scratching my head still, but
yeah, right. Well, that's true.
Of course, you're in a contending window where the White Sox are not.
Yeah.
So that might be another difference. But yeah, I think that makes some sense.
Yeah. It'll be a rotation full of former Cy Young winners. So hopefully they live up to the billing. On another note, on something I forgot, but you pointed out to me, an era has come to an end in the Giants. The heir apparent to Buster Posey, that all we heard about, second pick in 2018, Joey Bart has been traded from the organization to the Pittsburgh Pirates.
We used to do segments about Joey Bart like years ago. I mean, I've heard his name forever, and he just never panned out.
Yeah, he tore up. He's always tore up like the minors. He's probably was a minor league player of the year at one point, but hasn't had a good run in the majors. Has had moments of putting some at bats together, but even struggled a little bit defensively behind the plate too. The funny thing is, one of the reasons he even got traded was he was out of options. It was one of those situations he was out of options, and he just wasn't good enough to be on the major league roster. So they optioned him, and the Pirates wanted him. And the funny thing, the reason the Pirates wanted him is Yasmani Grandal, surprise, went on the IL with a plantar fasciitis foot injury. I've heard that one before, and is going to be on the IL for a long time, apparently for an extended period of time. So they needed another catcher. So thanks to Yasmani Grandal's injury for the Pirates, former catcher of the White Sox, Joey Bart ended up heading to Pittsburgh. They wanted to make a trade. We got a pitcher. Giants got a pitcher named Strickland or something like that from them. I don't know too much about him. It worked out. Trade was able to be made. It's kind of, of course, in his first game at the Pirates, he hit a home run, Joey Bart. So, of course, that's how it works out.
Of course.
But, I was as up and excited about Joey Bart as anyone. In fact, when Posey retired, I didn't blink an eye. I mean, I was like, great. Not great, but like, okay, we've got the guy.
Yeah.
It's gonna boom. And
it seemed like a foregone conclusion almost. Yeah. It was like not an issue, like you said.
Yeah, and he got to play under Posey, so with him, so he learned from him, but didn't work out with the Giants. Hopefully, I wish him no ill will. Hopefully, he works out with the Pirates, who are 9-3 to start the season,
Yeah.
which I think
One of
is
the hottest teams in the league.
Which is funny because we talked about this in our Nostradamus, how they started out red hot last year and then just had this slow fade to where they like eventually were in first place for a lot of the month of April in the NL Central, and then kind of were between first and third in May, and then by the time you got to July, they were like 10 games under 500. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe finally the young talent there is coming around, but yeah, I'm confident. I remain confident that the Giants, in fact, I'm willing to say that the next time we come on next week, the Giants will be at a minimum 500. At a minimum.
You're 3 games below right now, so yeah,
Yeah.
that would take some work, but it can happen. I haven't seen what your schedule is, but that we'll be paying close attention to your predictions.
That's right.
In-season predictions now.
My Nostradamus in-season predictions.
Yes.
But that is all I've got for the Giants, unless you are going to remind me of something I should be talking about.
No, I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to move on to the other side of the bay for my fucking A's.
Shenanigans afoot.
Or as they will, for now, at least on this podcast, they will be known as the Sacramento Triple-A's, as they made the announcement. They made the announcement that the A's will indeed be playing at least the next 3 seasons in Sacramento, in the Triple-A affiliate of your San Francisco Giants, the Sacramento River Cats. They'll be playing in their 11,000 seat stadium.
And they still can't sell out.
Well, that's the thing. The A's have averaged over the last 3 seasons about 9,500 fans per home game.
Pretty crowded then. It'll look pretty crowded there.
So yeah, it'll look great. 11,000 seat stadium will look great for those Sacramento Triple-A's. Issues may arise, as often do in minor league stadiums that are not built for major league teams or major league broadcasts. The lights will have to be redone, of course. One major issue is the clubhouses are not underneath the stands, as every major league ball club is. Both home and road teams will have to go to the outfield to visit their clubhouses. I'm not sure what the batting cage situation is off the dugout. I'm assuming there are none, considering every major league club has a batting cage right off the dugout that they can get to under the stands. That's going to be an interesting conundrum that the A's will have to deal with, and their opponents will. It's clearly a business decision, as the A's desperately tried to get a lease extension for the Oakland Coliseum, at which point Oakland said, no problem, give us $100 million a year, I think, or maybe it was the 3-year term, the extension, because they could play hardball, because the owner and President David Caval worked himself into a corner and they figured out that they had nowhere else to go. The part that was in question I brought up on previous episodes was the TV money. Right now, their TV deal is through NBC Sports California, and it was said that their $67 million a year that they have coming to them would not be coming to them if they did not play in the Bay Area going forward. Somehow that has changed. There's been a negotiation of sorts that will be somewhat extended in Sacramento, as it is not, I think it's about 100 miles away from the Bay Area. It is not the full 76 million that they'd be getting, but apparently it is enough to make it so that the $100 million that Oakland was asking for the lease extension is does not equal that, or is below that, or more than that. So it's clearly a business decision. It's going to be, with everything with the A's, it's going to be a fiasco for the reasons I pointed out. They're going to be playing Major League Baseball games in a minor league stadium. Granted, it is a AAA club, so it is a larger stadium than most. Most minor league clubs probably have I would say, an average of 7,000 seats. This does have enough to accommodate 14,000 if you include the lawn areas and other group party areas. So we'll see how that works out when big teams like the Yankees come into town. I don't know how that works out, how many people will be traveling to Sacramento, but It's also kind of an audition for Sacramento, who wants to be seen as a major league city. Maybe that could be something that develops if this is somehow a wild success. And things still are not solidified in Las Vegas. Maybe this is where the A's eventually move to, or maybe this is an audition for Sacramento to potentially be an expansion city. They do have the Sacramento Kings in the NBA, so they have professional sports there. Who's to say they can't support a major league team? It's just going to be a very awkward situation with the A's there in a AAA ballpark. Awkward situations abound with the A's. That leads to the opening day. I call it the opening dud for the Oakland A's, who actually had an announced crowd of 13,522 people, which is a pretty embarrassing number to begin with. That would be their lowest since 1979 for an opening day home opener. There's no way there were 13,000 people there if you look at any of the footage from it. If that is true, if there really were 13,000 people there had to be 50,000 people protesting in the parking lot that night. As the fan organized protests in the Coliseum parking lot were just, it was a resounding success. How many people showed up? It was an impressive number. It looked far more populated in the parking lot than any crowd in the stands. Organizers, as they had done parts of last year, organized a sell the team chant during the fifth inning, at which point everyone was honking their horns, setting off their car alarms, chanting sell the team. You could hear it out of the parking lot into the stadium, into the TV broadcast, and the smattering of crowd that was in the stadium even joined in the sell the team chant. So I think it was a resounding success for the sell the team boycott movement, and an obviously unmitigating disaster for the A's. Just another embarrassing moment for just a completely embarrassing franchise. I think that is all I've got for the A's, and that might be the last time I bring up the A's for quite some time on this podcast. Hopefully the fan organizations continue to organize different protests throughout the year, that we can cover that. But to cover the team itself is a futile effort, as they have a 4-7 record. They're not, I think it's 4-7 right now, but
yeah,
mainly because they beat up on my Tigers this past weekend, which is a frustrating thing to see. But
yeah,
I don't see how else we'll be talking about the A's much going forward this season, at least. But all right, we are back with a return of one of our new segments from last season that we are definitely going to carry on throughout this season. Our Badass of the Week, where we take the best stats from all five players from all five teams that we cover here. We are stacked this week. We've got a 2-week span basically that we're covering. I think we're going to have to break it down at least this week between pitchers. Maybe we'll have a Badass of the Week pitcher and a Badass of the Week position player, because there's a lot going on here. I think you've got all the stats over there, but you want to go through the pitchers?
Sure. All right. Here are our nominees for Badass of the Week. Pitchers. Number 1, Garrett Crochet, who we talked about earlier.
You almost made me spit out my beer right there.
Garrett Crochet, who we talked about earlier tonight. 18 innings pitched, 21 Ks, a 2 ERA, and a 6.67 whip. Boing! Whew. Too bad he's on a team that's going nowhere. Up next, impressive start to his MLB career for the Chicago Cubs, Shota Imanaga. 10 innings pitched, 12 Ks, no runs, a .4 whip. Now, was that a 5 and a 5, or is that a 6 and a 4 for the 10 innings?
I can't remember now. Good question.
Okay.
I'm not sure why it matters, but yes.
Just curious. I was wondering. I wasn't sure if there was like a rain-shortened game or something. Jason Foley? Who does he play for?
Oh, come on. He shoved it up the ass of your Chicago White Sox in the opening series from my Detroit Tigers.
Oh, Jason Foley from the Detroit Tigers with 3 saves, 5.1 innings pitched, 7 Ks, no earned runs, and a .938 whip.
I had to throw a Tiger in there. There wasn't a whole lot of other going on with our pitchers this week.
Nah.
I thought it was a interesting conversation. I thought we could have an interesting conversation about Shota Imanaga and Garrett Crochet, just for the fact that Imanaga has yet to give up an earned run. He has been aided by the winds of Wrigley Field tremendously in his 2 starts. We're blowing in. So he is a classic fly ball pitcher, and home runs have been a problem for him in his Japanese league career. I fear that that'll be an issue for him going forward, but it has not clearly so far. Garrett Crochet has been fucking dominant. Although you and I both think it's going to be short-lived. We'll see how long he is able to do this throughout the season. But from the sample size we have here, he is a fantastic starting pitcher in the making. I think that'll probably last into June, and then we'll see. But I think for now, I'd have to give him my badass of the week for our pitchers.
Well, good, because I was going to just plead that we give it to him so I get one White Sox badass of the week in here this season, because this is gonna. I mean, he may be. Lewis Robert was like a reoccurring figure last year in badass of the week, and he might be.
He was badass of the year, was he not?
Yeah, we did declare him badass of the year. Yeah.
It was every week. We could have named him badass of the week many other weeks. We just chose not to.
We did.
Because it got boring. But so you had plenty on that realm. You're not going to see as much this year. So I understand that sentiment.
So yeah, all right. We can agree that it is Garrett Crochet pitching badass of the week.
Okay.
All right. Now we're going to move over to badass of the week for hitters. We're going to start off with Shane Langoliers, member of Backdoor Sliders, who also is Garrett Crochet is also a member of Backdoor Sliders. So I think
that would be your fantasy team.
Yeah, I think
your crassly named fantasy team.
It's only crass because of the chocolate donut as my logo, I think, which makes you sick, but which is why we'll never change it.
I also like that you are the Backdoor Sliders.
That's right.
Not just Backdoor Sliders.
That's right.
I am the Ohio State.
Exactly.
Is that your reference there?
Thank you. Very good. Very good. You're smart using the noggin. So Shane,
I didn't know you had any affiliation with the Ohio State, but congratulations.
I'm also the Veneri at att.net. So send me your email.
Oh, that's right.
Send me your thoughts, everyone. I just gave that out on the fucking podcast.
That's your personal Twitter feed too, isn't it? The Veneri?
Yeah.
Okay. Now it all comes together. I see what's happening here.
There's only one really. My brother. The
definite article.
Yeah. So all right. Anyway, back. Shane Langoliers for the Oakland Athletics. 4 home runs, 4 runs, 7 RBIs, a 144 OPS. Here is one of my favorite nominees this week. For the Chicago Cubs, Christopher Morel. 3 home runs, including a grand salami. 11 runs.
431-foot grand slam.
Yeah. 11 runs to go along with 10 ribbies. I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And 141
that's a hell of a couple weeks.
OPS plus. How about this? The guy that every White Sox fan wanted last season ended up on the Giants, had an okay, season with the Giants last year, but Michael Conforto for the San Francisco Giants with 3 home runs, 8 runs, 11 RBIs, and 175 OPS plus.
I almost missed him on our list completely. Like I didn't see that right away. And then I saw he had 3 home runs. His 175 OPS plus is rather impressive too. So he's off to that hot offensive start.
Yeah. And that's, I should have talked about it during the Giants segment, but that's the Michael Conforto that everyone wanted. That the reason to sign him was this possibility. So we're seeing the upside right now. Anyway, moving on again, somehow it's dismal as they are at 2-10. The Chicago White Sox, Gavin Sheets, 2 home runs, 4 runs, 7 RBIs, a stolen base. And wait a minute, folks. This is off the fucking charts. A 229 OPS plus. Unbelievable.
Did I just type that wrong? Did I send that in the text wrong, or is that real? 229 plus.
No, it's real.
OPS
I had it up on the on my monitor here.
What is that base? I mean, is his OBP that high or what? I mean, with only 2 home runs, is every other one of his
Well,
hits a double or a triple?
it's
Like,
he's been lacing doubles, like he's getting a bonus
wow,
per double hit. In fact, in last night's
boy,
game with the 5 RBIs, he had a home run and 2 doubles.
Jesus Christ. We're
Yeah,
not going to see another 229 OPS plus, I think, in Badass of the Week.
probably
But
not. Coming up next, another Chicago Cub continuing his torrid pace from the second half of last season, except for those last couple weeks. Seiya Suzuki, 2 home runs, 9 runs, 12 ribbies, a 136 OPS plus. And last but not least, hopefully he can stay healthy this season. Detroit Tigers, Riley Green, 3 home runs, 7 runs, 5 RBIs, and a 131 OPS plus.
yeah, I needed to include Riley because, I mean, the 3 home runs is certainly noteworthy. I am a little worried about how long he's going to last, considering, like you pointed out, how long he can stay without injury. So I had to throw him in this week. I think he's worthy with the 3 home runs. I don't think he stands up we start looking at OPS plus, and you and I are, our fantasy league our fantasy league never had average as a category. It was always OBP. And then we realized that's also dumb.
Yeah.
OPS is the stat. And then to average that out against the rest of the competition in the current major leagues with OPS plus is a very telling stat. 229 for Gavin Sheets. I'm still marveling at. I mean, the 175 of Conforto is
that's
unreal.
insane.
I mean, I went into this thinking it like Christopher Morel had it hands down with 3 home runs, 11 runs, 10 RBI, and the 141 OPS plus any other week is incredible. I mean, I don't know how we don't. I don't want to give it to 2 White Sox, but do we have to give it to Gavin Sheets?
It'll be the only time it happens this year. Okay, just to put level set, here you go. You ready? His OBP is 455. His slugging percentage is 704. So his OPS plus is 1158 right now.
His OPS is 1158.
Yeah, and I'm sorry,
okay.
his OPS is 1158. So, I mean, for the first time in his career, he's got a positive WAR. So, I mean, geez.
Yeah. Morel's, runs and RBIs and, game-winning game-winning grand slam. That's where I want to lean if we're not going to give it to 2 White Sox. But I mean, it's just our dumb badass of the week, so I could live with it if we have to do 2 White Sox. Who is your nomination for badass of the week hitter?
I mean, I struggle between the middle 3. I mean, if we're just going purely like who is overall the best hitter, it's Gavin Sheets. But I think we also have to take into account, like, you got Christopher Morel, who's on a team in first place. And I know it's early in the season or competing for first place and has aspirations of a World Series or, at minimum going to the playoffs this year, not falling short. So there's some pressure there. He's a younger player too, younger than Gavin. Same thing for Conforto. Like he's in the NL West. They have, playoff hopes. For Gavin Sheets, he's playing for his future, sure, but there's not a lot of pressure on him. I would say, I like to take a little bit of that into account, like pressure on a player. So I'm leaning towards Morel and Conforto for this one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I don't know. The old me would be just completely annoyed by Christopher Morel because he's a Cub. But he's a fun fucking dude to watch.
He's got Peter Criss makeup on.
He's got the Peter Criss look. Yeah, he's the cat man. He had a fucking grand slam too. I love grand slams. Who doesn't? Unless they're against you.
Big Denny's fan over there.
Yeah, I love a grand slam. So, as much as this pains me to say, for me, like the 11, he's creating havoc, and he has proven at the start of this season something we talked about in the offseason, how his bat needs to be in the lineup every day, and it has to be. And he is playing up to expectations right now. So, and honestly, he was really set up. If you're thinking about it, like it could be, and there's still a season to play, but this guy's set up for like how he performed, like over expectations, really, even last season, like way ahead of schedule and shit. Like he's totally set up for a letdown, but he's not having a letdown right now. So I don't know.
No.
I like Christopher Morel for
The only thing he could have a letdown with is his defense, which I was considering at one point, and maybe we'll still do this, but doing a weekly segment and figuring out his home run to error ratio.
That's why you got to keep
Right.
him at DH.
Yeah, right now it's 3-3. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, which is I guess we'll put up with it if that's what it's going to be. But he's not totally embarrassing himself at third base, so he's making it a little bit easier on Craig Counsell how to keep him in. But fortunately, the Cubs have the DH. The National League has the DH now. They've finally come to their senses. Yeah, he's fucking fun to watch. So I think we want to stand for equality on this podcast. We don't want a terrible White Sox team to run away with both badasses of the week. It wouldn't make much sense. So if we stand for equality, we can throw in a Cub for the second badass of the week, the batter of the week. I can live with that if you want to live with that.
I'll live with it. Christopher Morel is our badass hitter of the week.
Nice. All right. Yeah, this is kind of a weird week, being 2 full weeks essentially.
Yeah,
So I'm
true.
wondering how that's going to play out differently next week and throughout the season. But we did it pretty much every week. I think we did it every week last year.
Yep.
Every week we did a podcast. So I thought that worked out well. So hopefully we don't have 10 candidates or whatever we had this week. Make it a little bit clearer who the actual badass of the week really is. Well, that moves us over to an expanded aesthetics.
Dun, dun,
This might
dun,
be
dun.
the most jam-packed aesthetics we've ever had.
Ugh,
I mean, it starts with the Major League Baseball uniform controversy that just seems to never end. I almost feel like we're just a couple jackass podcasters, bloggers, whatever the fuck we are. YouTubers. I think that's what we are now.
We're
I think we're on
tubers,
YouTube.
man. We're tubers.
Yeah, we're
man.
tubers. It's easy for us to cherry pick and just make fun of MLB any way they can, but really, the uniforms continue to be a national story. I see it in reputable publications across the nation, just bringing up how shitty the uniforms are. This week, they're talking about sweat stains, visibly way more noticeable than on the old uniforms. Somebody pointed out the reason the numbers and the nameplates on the back look so shitty compared to what we're used to is they've standardized the size of the lettering of the players' names
Okay.
to 2.5 inches, and it looks tiny on everyone, but maybe a few teams. The letters are really spaced out. It looks so cheap. Like they've said before, it looks like a giveaway jersey more than a major league jersey. But they've the reason it looks like that is they've standardized the font size to 2.5 inches.
You know why they did that? Cheaper.
It's got to be it's got to be a cost savings effort, which is so sad. There's been supply chain issues. There's a growing noticeable difference between the grays of the pants in road uniforms and the grays of the jersey in road uniforms. So apparently the materials are coming from 2 different manufacturing plants and they cannot calibrate the grays properly. So I didn't notice it right away, and I'm starting to notice it more and more that the grays are different on the road. It just looks cheap. Speaking of cheapness with the jerseys, the uniforms themselves, the pants are apparently not of adequate quality to stop them from ripping to shreds, as we saw Riley Green doing a normal slide into home plate this week, have basically his pants come apart right at the seam on the stripe on the side of his pants. The whole thigh came apart. Fortunately, he was wearing compression shorts, so no one was having to see his exposed genitalia, but that might be something that happens down the road. It just completely shredded, and he didn't even notice it at first. And he got into the dugout, and everyone was laughing at him because his pants are totally shredded. he ran immediately into the clubhouse to change his pants. But somebody pointed out, it's like, he should have just came back out to bat the next day or go out to play the outfield in his shredded uniform. You know, what's to stop him? Like, why not make it a point of emphasis? Like, what the fuck are we doing? How could Major League Baseball be subjected to this bullshit? So, hey, if the Athletic and all, a lot of national publications are still bringing this stuff up, I think we have a duty to continue to bring this up in our, at least in our aesthetics segment.
Definitely
Made
duty.
for this. The Tigers had a little bit of news beyond Riley Green's shredded pants. Their City Connect uniforms will be released on May the 6th.
Oh.
So just a few weeks away. They will debut on the field on May 10th. So I am breathlessly awaiting that. They actually said merchandise would be available on May the 6th. So I don't know if they're going to reveal it that day or if it might be revealed what the uniforms actually are before that. I'm hoping it would be before that. So we still have several weeks to go before that. Of course, I am looking very forward to that. I need some more merch. I've got my Tigers hat that I'm basically wear every single day. I think I've worn a Tigers cap as a bald man. I've worn at least a Tigers cap probably it's got to be 95% of the days over the last 15, 20 years, I would think. So I need some new merch. Maybe, hopefully their hat has a cool logo.
Yeah, hopefully you like it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. I would say the majority of City Connect uniforms have been
decent enough.
Bad. They've been okay. I would say more lean to bad. There have been a couple exceptions which are fantastic, such as your Southside uniforms in Chicago. But
that's how we roll.
I hope I can rock some cool shit like you've been able to do for the last couple of years. We'll see. You'd think they've got the Motor City to work with. They've got cool shit to work with. So hopefully Nike doesn't fuck it up. Nike doesn't give me a whole lot of hope considering what was just revealed in the Philly City Connect uniforms revealed by the Philadelphia Phillies this week. I didn't get your thoughts. I'm not sure how much you cared for these or not. I think they were okay at best. I think you've got the full description there. I'll describe them quickly. They start with the cap. It's a Liberty Bell with a cityscape of Philadelphia kind of built into it. Cracked Liberty Bell. Pretty much the cliche logo of anything from Philadelphia.
Yes.
They do have the 2 stars on each side of the bell, which it's a cool thing for designers, at least. Their word mark on the chest of their jerseys for years, the 2 eyes in Phillies have always had a star over each of those, which is a cool just graphic thing. So they've mimicked that in the hat logo for the City Connect hat, at least. It's fine. I just think the Liberty Bell is so cliche for everything Philadelphia.
I mean,
the uniforms. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I might buy a hat just to support Philly's best here in Chicago with their delicious cheesesteak.
That's the first thing I thought of.
It's their logo.
Yeah, first thing I thought of. Yeah, Philly's best logo, famous cheesesteak stand in Chicago. Best Philly cheesesteaks I've ever had. I've never been to Philadelphia to have, what is it, Pat's and Joe's or whatever, Pat's and Geno's, whatever the other one is. But I did have a friend in Chicago. You actually know him, Derek from, what's his band name? You met him one time. You were telling me about it. He lived in Philadelphia. What's his band name? It's like Statutes of Liberty.
Oh yeah.
I think you guys played with him once, the Telepaths, but he lived in Philadelphia for a couple of years, and he said that Philly's best is like the closest to a real cheesesteak that you could ever find. So I take his word, and they're fucking great. So the jerseys, though, are like a gradient from a light blue into a dark blue, which this is, again, my nerdy graphic designer's talk. I've never liked gradients in any kind of graphic design. I think it's really a cheap gag almost. It's kind of a cop out. It's a very 80s or 90s thing. I feel like when I see gradients, it's like a graphic designer doesn't really know what they're doing, but maybe that's just me. It has a lot of yellow accents, which those colors are all present in the city of Philadelphia flag, which I did not realize. I guess people outside of Philly probably wouldn't know that, although like in Chicago, the Chicago flag is very famous, but maybe that's just for Chicagoans. You all know that everyone in Chicago knows there's a white flag with 2 light blue bars and 4 red stars, 6-pointed stars in the middle. It's an iconic flag. So maybe Philadelphia's flag is just as iconic. I don't know. They've got the dark pants again, which that was one of my biggest pet peeves of the last 2 years, actually, of City Connect uniforms. The dark pants, I just think it just looks bad. It doesn't look like a baseball uniform to me. If they had a dark jersey and white pants, I think that would always be better. But again, that's just me. I think you've got all the details there. There's all sorts of symbolism and ridiculous meaning they pull
Yes,
into these that we like to mock. So I think you've got the official explanation from the Phillies.
I do. I'm going to start by, schooling you on your hate for the gradient. The light to dark shift, Smitty, celebrates Philly's spirit of revolution, a city unafraid to rise up and fight. So there you go. You're mocking that, and it symbolizes their fight, their rise up to fight.
Is that what you saw when you first saw the gradient?
No, I was like, why does this look like one of my kids' travel baseball uniforms who's 13? That's what I thought.
Yeah.
The lettering, they use this like script. Our script,
it's kind of like a calligraphy almost. Yes, yeah.
And it is. Our script is reminiscent of our country's founding documents that features a pattern symbolizing the crack of the Liberty Bell.
They got me on this. I didn't notice that right away, but yes, the Philly written across the chest is in a calligraphy font that looks like, when you see "We the People" or the document Declaration or the Constitution. It does look like that. And I think that's kind of cool. I would not, even as someone that pays attention to typography closely, I did not pick up on that immediately, but I like that idea. The pattern they're referring to, it's like a zigzag pattern within the word mark itself. I think that's what they're saying is the crack of the Liberty Bell.
Okay.
That is
to see
wow.
What I'm looking at,
yeah, that is reading way into things. So okay,
and that's the usual when we go through these things. There's always like, what? The final. Oh,
you're covering up your mic.
Oh yeah, sorry. Well, one of the things is the blue. The reason the collar is blue is literally because it's a blue collar city. So
okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there a non-blue collar city in Major League Baseball? Because I feel like every team has brought up blue collar somehow.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious. Like somehow that's a badge of honor, blue collar.
I mean,
we're blue collar. Fuck you.
The Sox collar could be blue collar. The Cubs collar would have to be white collar. But that's the north side.
Yeah, maybe the Cubs are white
discrepancy
collar.
That's been argued over the years. I think it's whatever. But like that's one of the differentiators. Like when there's an argument of the sides of the city, but
I get that. But the fact that every city thinks they are the blue collar city is funny. I fear that the Tigers are going to play into blue collar somehow as well. It's just such a cliche and boring and
I agree.
Silly.
And then the last thing that we need to cover is our heart on our sleeve. The sleeve patch, there's a sleeve patch that is the Liberty Bell that spells out love. Somehow
yeah, there's a famous statue.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a famous statue in Philadelphia, the Love statue, which is spelled it's L in a sideways, maybe it's a heart, but I think it's a angled O stacked on top of a VE. It's you'd recognize it if you saw it, but they're kind of mimicking that in that patch, but heart on our sleeve. Man, okay, I get it.
Yeah, the city patch features City of Brotherly Love with the iconic Liberty Bell, a nod to the notable love sculpture, as you were saying, located in the heart of the city. I don't know how you get to O with the Liberty Bell.
Yeah,
it took me a second.
It's easy to just Yeah, did you think it was live?
I didn't know. I was like, what is it? Oh, it's love.
Okay. Yeah. I think if you were more familiar with the statue they're referring to, or Philadelphia, I mean, this is made for Philadelphians, obviously, it would make more sense. But again, with all these, they make sense. They're trying to go for a non-traditional baseball crowd. They're trying to draw interest into the game. They're trying to sell merchandise to people that haven't bought merchandise before, but they're trying to draw a different crowd. They're certainly marketing towards Philadelphians and not to middle-aged white dudes like you and me
In the
in the
Midwest? Why?
Midwest.
What?
Yeah. No, we're never going to quite get these, but so I think we've had similar reviews to others, but as much as I've been bagging on it, I don't think they're horrific by any means. So I'm not going to give them 2 middle fingers down. I guess the halfway is 1 middle finger up and 1 middle finger down is how I'm going to do it. I don't know how you thought.
I am voting the same exact way. 1 up,
Okay.
1 down.
Yeah. Well, we have, there's going to be like 8 more, 9 more this season, actually before the All-Star break to be revealed. So, the Tigers are coming up in May. I think we're going to see shit. I did just see there was another one coming out in like 2 weeks. So we're going to have another aesthetic segment, whether you want one or not. I think you still had another part of this aesthetic segment that you wanted to bring up.
Yeah. I'm a little perplexed. All these teams have done good and bad jobs with sponsorship on their sleeves. And, the Guardians have Marathon and kind of like what the Tigers did have done with
Meyer.
Thank you. It blends really well with the jersey. It's not, you're like, what is that? Oh, it's for Marathon. Like
Meyer actually agreed to change their color on this patch, which is kind of an unusual thing for a brand, any company to do with their brand, to change the logo, actually change their logo colors to match the Tigers, which I thought was great. That's why it looks great. And it's also why you barely notice it, which is kind of defeats the purpose of a jersey sleeve advertisement, but it makes me happier.
But somehow one of the cheapest owners in baseball has somehow not found a way to, his departments, his marketing departments have not found a way to sell space on their sleeve. And I honestly believe that they haven't been able to sell space on their sleeve because they are so pathetic and so poorly run that no one wants to advertise on their jersey. But I have a solution. I think I found someone who will want to advertise on the White Sox sleeve. And I think it's perfect for the White Sox. And it'll be a perfect nod to a classic 70s film. It's Gonzalez and Gonzalez bail bonds located just outside of Bridgeport. It'll be the perfect sleeve to what is a terrible team, very similar to the Major League version of the Bad News Bears. So here's my advice to you, White Sox, Brooks Boyer. Go out, hit up Gonzalez and Gonzalez and get the nice Gonzalez and Gonzalez bail bonds right on the sleeve there.
That's the Chico's bail bonds logo from the Bad News Bears.
That's correct. Yes.
Now, isn't there a Chico's like menswear franchise
there is
in Chicago?
Well, I think it's a national franchise, but
is it national?
Yeah,
I've only heard the commercials in Chicago.
But I think maybe not. I could be wrong. But yeah, no, I think it's they gotta go. I mean, if they can't even get fucking Rickabennies to get advertisement on the sleeves, you gotta go darker and deeper. So I think it's Bales bonds, baby.
I like it. I think they've probably been not letting Guaranteed Rate to sponsor the sleeves as well as the stadium because of their downward pointing arrow in their logo, which would be
not inaccurate.
Another sad moment.
Not inaccurate at this point.
It's also bright red, so that would definitely show up on the black and gray, black and white.
They're definitely not going to put any medical advertisement on their sleeve.
Oh my God! Yes, good point. Yeah.
Unless they get a rehab, maybe a medical like Athletico for your rehab, they could get some sort of discount for their players to go there to rehab their injuries. But
they got to subsidize that somehow. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Anyway,
I like it.
That was my thoughts on that.
Well, thank you for participating in another aesthetics. I know it's against your will. You've been dragged into this for several years now. Now you're actively participating with your own thoughts. So
that's right.
I appreciate that. Well, that moves us over to our first no of the week of the 2024 season. It did not take long. I think it was 4 days into the season where Romel Blanco of the Houston Astros threw a very unlikely no-hitter. This is only his 8th start in his career. He's only starting because the Astros have been decimated by injuries.
Yeah.
So he was just sort of thrown in there, and he happens to throw a goddamn no-hitter. The next game, he went 5 more innings into a no-hitter, which is 44 outs without giving up a hit equals an expansion era record since 1961 for extended innings without giving up a hit. He's, essentially a reliever that just got thrown into the role. He didn't make his debut until he was 28 years old. He's just kind of a journeyman that just finally found his way to the majors in a bullpen, got thrown into a starting rotation and threw a goddamn no-hitter. He's now 30 years old. It couldn't be more unlikely. He had never pitched over 6 innings in his life, and he had never thrown 100 pitches. So he got 105 pitches in 9 innings. So you just never saw this coming. I think that covers. Oh, that's all I've got for that. Unless you had it. Oh, the other part of it is, of course, it was another thing that happened on April Fool's Day. Just to add to the irony of that crazy day.
When it did come across my phone, I went, who?
Yeah. Romel Blanco, congratulations. You get our no-no of the week.
Enrico Palazzo? Well, I guess that moves us over to our signature segment.
Asshole of the week. Yes.
Right.
Your Giants division rival, Los Angeles Dodgers, keep embarrassing themselves. This time, beyond all of the potential gambling scandals, which there's more news about Shohei Ohtani that we didn't even get to this week, but maybe we'll talk about next week as the federal investigation is wrapping up. Does appear that the fall guy, Ippei Mitsuhara, is going to take the fall and nothing will happen to Shohei Ohtani, much as we predicted. But this week, the Dodgers embarrassed themselves by basically assaulting their own fans. As the first Shohei Ohtani home run hit in his Dodger career, the ball was caught by a Dodgers fan, to which Dodgers security confronted her and separated her from her husband to negotiate ways to get the ball back from her. Now, this ball is already rumored to be valued at over $100,000 immediately. The first Dodgers home run from Ohtani is clearly a very valuable asset. In fact, the Dodgers on one of their websites is selling a foul ball. I think it's the first foul ball that Shohei Ohtani hit. They're selling that for $15,000. So they are fully aware of how much this ball is worth. They basically separated this woman from her husband so they could try to strong arm her into giving them the ball for next to nothing. The first report I saw is that they offered her 2 hats that were signed by Shohei Ohtani.
And hats.
When I first saw that, I thought of the scene from The Departed, where Leonardo's character is talking to his police psychologist, where she finally says she's going to give him 2 pills for his anxiety and everything else that's going on with him. He looks at her and goes, 2 pills? 2 pills? Why don't you just give me a bottle of scotch and a handgun so I can blow my fucking head off? That could have been her reaction. Like, 2 hats for this $100,000 ball? Maybe she wasn't aware of what it was going to cost, and she's also being accosted by a phalanx of Dodgers security berating her to give up the ball. I think eventually she agreed to that plus 2 bats maybe signed by Ohtani. But typically the easiest way to solve this is you get the athlete to come out, meet the fan. They don't have to have a long conversation with them. Just take a selfie, put your arm around them, give them a signed jersey, whatever it takes. But the key is meeting Shohei. And they did not do that. We know Shohei is a recluse. He does not like to speak. He does not like to be, in the media eye. And he's been way more in the media's eye than he could ever hope he would ever, dreamed of with this gambling scandal. So he might be even more of a recluse at this point. But the Dodgers completely botched this, especially going after their own fans. And I think they've subsequently sort of made up for it, giving a little bit more than just 2 hats. But they only did that after the avalanche of public pressure against them.
Right.
So they just look like complete assholes. The other part of this is, at first, Shohei said, and this could be another misinterpretation, which is getting an excuse that is getting way, way too thin. He said he did meet with the fans, and the fans are like, no, he didn't. So is this just another lie from Shohei, or is this just another thing lost in translation somehow? Now with his new interpreter, they could say somehow that didn't get communicated properly, but it's just it's such a small thing. It's just such a gross thing. It could have easily been handled from the Dodgers' perspective and from Shohei's perspective. Just do the right thing. Don't lie about it, but do the right thing in the first place. Just give her something of real value, not 2 fucking hats, and just take 60 seconds and meet the people and give them an experience of their life. Instead, it's led to acrimony and another black eye to the Dodgers organization. So I'm happy to call the Dodgers our asshole of the week.
I am too. I fully support this decision. I don't. Here's what I don't understand, and you kind of outlined it all. It's pretty simple. Like, this happens all the time, right? And normally when it does happen, the fan walks away with, especially for something as prized as this, lots of great stuff.
Yeah.
And usually whatever they request, for the most part, sometimes it's even from another player, they get what they want. Didn't Verlander do something? I feel like for something with the Astros, and Verlander ended up signing some baseballs because that's what they wanted, and a jersey.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was exactly.
And you hear those stories all the time, and it costs the players nothing but a couple minutes of their time. It costs the organization nothing to give away, signed merchandise. Just the idea that this wouldn't be the first thought in their mind is to give the fan whatever they wanted. We need to have this ball for posterity, for whatever, for if they're going to sell it in their fucking shop for $100,000, that's another thing. But it would cost them next to nothing to just do the right thing, and they chose not to. In fact, the worst part about this is separating the husband from the wife.
Yeah, that is just so
a little
shady.
bit better deal. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, just dirty, fucking gross. It's just gross.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I feel like we're gonna make the Dodgers assholes of the week again when they don't make the playoffs, for spending all the money.
Oh.
Hey-oh!
Spoken like a true Giants fan. I didn't think you'd have a problem with nominating the Dodgers for asshole of the week. I share your sentiments. I think it would be hilarious if they do not make the playoffs somehow. Somehow I do think they're going to win 100 games, yet they'll still shit the bed in the playoffs.
Well, they will.
Do. So we'll toast to that when that does happen again. So
I'm toasting.
But for now, we can for now, cheers. We will call them our assholes of the week. Well, I think with that, we can wrap up this, we're at 2.5 hours almost.
2 hours and 21 minutes on the ticker.
Yeah. First regular season episode of In the Hole and Socks Type Thing, episode 146. You can find us on social media. You can find us on YouTube, where our YouTube channel is blowing up. We started the season with 100 subscribers. We're at 183 as of this evening, I believe. So we've doubled that in a matter of a month or two. So thank you all for tuning in on YouTube. We're going to chop up this 2.5 hour podcast into multiple segments, so you don't have to digest it all at once. Check that out at Major League A-Holes on YouTube. We're all over social media at Major League A-Holes and Socks Type Thing. You can find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I think we can declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Word Hole Media.